Thanks for joining the sixth installment of our ongoing webinar series, Beyond the Headlines, the Current and Future Economic Impact of COVID-19. Today's webinar focuses on a critical economic issue for our region, affordable housing. Trying to make sense of critical issues is one of the reasons our center was founded in 1997 as an applied social research branch of FIU, dedicated to inform public policy in the region. Since then, we have grown to become South Florida's leading urban think tank. Our work has four pillars: economic development and housing policy, performance management, valuation and survey research, training, and applied economic and demographic research. Decision makers in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors turn to us for thought leadership and policy guidance to improve their organizations and communities. We are evidence-driven and dedicated to enhancing the quality of life in our region. I hope you continue to follow our work on social media to see the depth and breadth of our community engagement. Now let me turn to brief biographies of our presenters. Dr. Ned Murray. Dr. Murray is Associate Director of Research at the Center. His expertise in economic development and housing is nationally recognized. Ned has authored numerous studies throughout the region and state with distinctive competence in affordable housing. Dr. Murray is a former practicing urban planner in Massachusetts, where he earned his PhD in urban and regional planning from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Before I turn the virtual mic over to Dr. Ned Murray, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues, Ms. Helen Roldan and Ms. Caroline Bernard-Stokes, for arranging the event. With no further ado, Dr. Ned Murray.
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope all well. Let me first start by saying once again, the future of affordable housing now is really part of a larger research undertaking by the FIU Metropolitan Center. We began this research back in March, soon after the closure of our university and many other establishments. But we took on that challenge of providing what we thought would be a really important comprehensive analysis of the short and long-term economic and community impacts of COVID-19. And obviously in the first few weeks, we focused mostly on the business loss, employment loss, and then we get into the individual sectors in the subsequent weeks. Going forward, we're going to have to look at programs in Section 8 like we once did. The Section 8 rental assistance program and vouchers that we have now obviously just aren't enough around to make the difference. Obviously, those who have them, it's great, but there was a day when Section 8 was also used for new construction. It was used for mod rehab. It was used for sub rehab. We have to be thinking Section 8 or some program like that at the federal level. So here's where Washington comes in, but because there will have to be at some point a massive response, even prior to COVID, to the nation's affordable housing crisis, not just here in South Florida. We have to look at some form of deeper subsidy in terms of Section 8 as it relates to other types of development activity, not just strictly rental assistance. But for now, it's very, very difficult because there's just so little around. And obviously, we haven't built any public housing as well over the last 20, 30 years, I believe now. So we have a shortage there, but also obviously Section 8 is not the program it used to be. So we have to figure out ways to better leverage what we have, but in the future, we're going to have to look at some major changes to the Section 8 program, or come up with new programs altogether to address development and rehabilitation at the national level. And we're seeing it already that people staying close to home right now, they're going to want to stay close to home for quite some time. So keeping people in their homes and rehabilitating those homes and providing maybe more space through ADUs, accessory dwelling units, may be something that we want to accelerate, because that provides more opportunities for existing homeowners to rent, but also be able to pay their mortgages, and at the same time create a little more space because there's going to be a much greater demand for remote working at all levels. So that's where we need to focus on that end. And as I said earlier, part of the analysis that has to be done on an ongoing basis is to really monitor these changes in demand and supply, and what are people thinking from a consumer standpoint. But some things we already know, and that's one of them, that people are going to want to stay home, they're going to want to stay closer to their home, and we already know that ADUs work, and we know housing rehab is a need that needs to be addressed in the first place. Well, I can answer that. I was here. Affordable housing was not a big issue in South Florida right up until about 2004 and 5. There was an old saying that the thing about Miami and South Florida, the dirt is cheap, and it was for the most part. Our biggest concerns 20 years ago had to do with housing conditions, as obviously a lot of the housing was in need of repair, and it's only getting worse now since then because the housing is getting older. But it really became the big issue in 2005 and 6 during the so-called bubble, and obviously it hasn't let up since that time. So it's been a major policy issue. We've been obviously dealing with it. Every community I know pretty much and county that we've worked with doing affordable housing studies since 2005 and 6, and we'll continue to do so. But it need to get policymakers in particular to understand that affordable housing cannot be looked at in this silo type of way, that affordable housing is part of the local economy and regional economy. They're one and the same. We can't continue to separate them out. That housing is an industry in and of itself, very, very important sector. So it really needs to be linked to our economic development to make sure that everyone, and we know who everyone is, for the most part, we have, as the numbers show, most of our people who live and work here of low and moderate income. So that's the big chunk, but we also need to make sure that we don't continue to do what we've done in areas like West Kendall and down in Homestead and all the way north up into St. Lucie is build housing so that because that becomes somewhat affordable for those who do want to purchase, and then we create this really difficult situation in terms of overall economic geography where people are moving further and further away from their work. So it all has to be taken into consideration, and as I said earlier, it has to be looked at in a unified way and in a very integrated way. Well, I'll just say this, a comprehensive affordable housing strategy needs to address housing for everybody, and obviously there's gaps often in housing policies and strategies relative to certain populations, and we need to be able to address that. Special needs housing, the homeless, others need to be part of that larger thinking, and our saying has always been that you need to provide a spectrum of housing choice and opportunity for everyone. And so we do need to have very specific policies and strategies to address the full spectrum of housing needs that's out there. And it needs to be very explicit. It's not just something that you put in the last chapter of a study. Each of these areas of need to be addressed in a very thoughtful way. We know that the numbers show female-headed households with children are one of the most vulnerable households being impacted by the job loss, and of course what that would mean relative to rents, should these programs not continue. So we can't wait. We cannot, and Kevin's been saying it together for some time now. We cannot wait for what comes out of Washington. It's even if there is a program, it'll be inadequate to address the level of need that we're going to have here are, without question, in not only in Miami-Dade, but in Broward and Palm Beach. And like I said, a lot of these are going to be female-headed households with children who would be on the streets. So we have to anticipate that and plan for it now, and we can't wait for Tallahassee and Washington. Well, it's not so much a planning and zoning issue at the city level. It's once again having policies in place and particularly from a housing standpoint, which they don't have right now, an affordable housing master plan similar to what the city of Miami has adopted, that does address this issue, which is becoming even pre-COVID a major concern, certainly here in Miami, where we have displacement and gentrification occurring on a regular basis. But you need your affordable housing master plan to drive your planning and zoning. Your planning and zoning are really tools for implementing those policies that would prevent that. But not only prevent it, but as we've been saying and Kevin's been saying, to provide the opportunities in the first place for residents and for businesses to stay where they are. We can't continue to see what's happened in Little Haiti and Little Havana and Allapattah continue, and it would have. We may be in a stall pattern right now, but that's going to come back again because that was the pattern of development that was occurring. But it starts really with having that affordable housing master plan or affordable housing, strategic plan that's in place that then drives your planning and zoning to prevent this type of thing, at the same time providing opportunities.
This is a continuation of our series on the COVID-19 pandemic and what its impact is on the South Florida community. And with that, thank you to the panel for providing such great information for everyone.